welcome to Elements of Ayurveda, Empowering Wisdom of Life. I'm your host, Colette, and in this podcast, I hope to empower you to take charge of your own health by sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, the ancient healing tradition from India. We will also discuss topics like health and wellness, nutrition, yoga, fitness, meditation, breath work, and much more, as well as interviewing lots of inspiring people along the way. My humble wish is to help you to connect to your true nature, to Mother Nature, and to each other. If you like the content, be sure to subscribe to the show, and the new episodes will automatically download for you to enjoy. If you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend you listen to the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. I've also set up a Facebook group for us to connect and to support each other, and I'd love for you to join me over at Elements of Ayurveda podcast group. And now, here's the show. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Elements of Ayurveda. Today, I'm very happy to introduce you to Marisa Laursen, who is the lead faculty at the California College of Ayurveda, where she also maintains an active clinical practice and develops curriculum for the college. Marisa has been teaching and practicing Ayurveda since 2002. She is a contributing author to various publications, including the Ayurveda Journal of Health. Marisa's certifications include Clinical Ayurvedic Specialist, Ayurvedic Yoga Therapist, Panchakarma Specialist, Yoga Nidra Practitioner, and Sivananda Yoga Teacher, among others. She teaches a variety of Ayurvedic workshops at various locations worldwide. Marisa's lifelong passion has been to bring sacred healing to her students, patients, and the global community. Marisa, welcome to the show. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you for being here. And I'm very excited to get into the questions today because I reached out to you and I saw a post that you put on your Facebook page about the ancient Rishis and sages, which we're going to discuss later. But first of all, I always like to ask my guests about how did Ayurveda come into your life?
I see. Yeah, that is important because it is honestly a personal goal of mine to help to bring the knowledge of Ayurveda to as many people as possible. And I found my way to it through yoga, although the truth is I worked for many years in the natural food industry and had sort of a periphery awareness of Ayurveda. And throughout my life, I had an interest in all things having to do with natural healing, as well as all things having to do with spirituality. And so as I started to kind of, in a marginal way and then increasingly through my yoga class, start to know what Ayurveda was, I realized that it is this amazing marriage of these two things that within my heart have always been such a driving force. And so I took a yoga class quite a number of years ago, and my yoga teacher was a student at the California College of Ayurveda. And the more I delved into it, the more I realized it's exactly what I had been seeking my whole life. And I went to school there and graduated in 2004 and have been practicing and teaching ever since.
Beautiful. That's great. And it seems like you're already in that field, as you mentioned. You're in the natural food industry. Is that correct, you said?
Yeah, it was.
So it kind of all goes hand in hand, that connection to nature with Ayurveda.
Absolutely.
Great.
Yes.
So what does Ayurveda mean to you? It's been in your life for a long time now, and like I said, it's your passion to spread the word of Ayurveda to the global community. What does it mean to you personally?
To me personally, it has created some very fundamental and profound shifts within my being, both physically, as well as emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, really truly in all levels of my being, which is exactly what Ayurveda does, is to address all layers of our being, especially because Ayurveda is the sister science to yoga. And so together it's a complete system that addresses all levels. And so for me personally, it's had very profound effects on my health. I came to Ayurveda with some health issues. Most specifically, I was having some pretty bad digestive issues, and Ayurveda helped just right away with that. And then also just furthering me along my own spiritual path and helping me to become more focused, more aware, more able to achieve an awareness that I find is available through the practices of yoga and Ayurveda. The teachings that they offer are so deep and profound.
I find that's very true. It does help you become more focused. Now, I alluded to earlier a Facebook post that you had posted maybe a month or two ago now, where you talked about the ancient Rishis or sages who first brought us the profound knowledge of Ayurveda and yoga. And you were contemplating your post, so how did these Rishis come to know the knowledge of Ayurveda? How are the truths revealed by Ayurveda known to be true? And then you mentioned that one of the 6 systems of Indian philosophy, Nyaya, answers this question. Can you please tell us about the ancient Rishis or sages and this philosophy of Nyaya? Am I pronouncing that correct?
Nyaya, yes.
Okay.
N-Y-A-Y-A. Little tricky word to say. Right. And so the Rishis or the sages were people who were learned people. They were typically scholars or yogis who had achieved a high level of awareness. And what that really means is that they had successfully been able to move their own egos out of the way, to see into the deepest truths, and to come from a place of their looking within their heart for those truths to be revealed, rather than looking for the answers in the world around them. And so, I mean, using what is in the world around them to help them to arrive at that, absolutely, but being able to be inner directed, meaning being able to tune into God or the divine and have the answers be revealed to them divinely. And so just to kind of put this all in a bit of perspective, there are 6 classical schools of Indian philosophy, and these schools are schools that help us to understand the world in a big way. They allow us to be able to do things such as answering the big questions of life. Who am I? Why am I here? How did I get here? Where am I going? Those kinds of questions that have been with us since the beginning of time. Well, these 6 schools of Indian philosophies emerged to help us to be able to find answers to these questions. In their own way, each of these 6 systems are distinct, and yet ultimately they all allow us to arrive at this place of ultimately enlightenment. That's what the goals of all of them are. So the 6 schools include Nyaya, which I'll talk about more in just a moment. Also a system called Sankhya philosophy, which helps us to understand creation. It basically describes creation. And then there's Vedanta, which teaches us ultimately that everyone and everything is God, and the world around us is simply illusion. That's the simple version of that. There's yoga philosophy. So yoga isn't just what we might typically think of yoga. It's actually an entire system of philosophy with 4 different paths associated with it. And then there's Visheshika and Mimamsa, and then Nyaya. Okay, so Nyaya philosophy, what makes it really an important piece of all this is Nyaya means argument or analysis. So this is an intellectual system of philosophy that is based on the principles of logic. So Nyaya utilizes logic as a means for arriving at these greater truths that we're talking about here. So it's not a system of philosophy that is based in dogma. It's not a religious philosophy. It's actually for the intellectually minded. And it basically trains someone in the art of discrimination so that you're able to, in essence, end suffering, attain enlightenment through right knowledge, through being able to scrutinize any piece of information using a particular set of principles, and through ultimately it teaches that knowledge is gained through inner knowing and proving the truthfulness of the information. So how does Nyaya do that? Well, what Nyaya teaches is that there's 4 different means of knowing truth. The highest of those is direct perception. And it is through direct perception that those rishis obtain these truths. So there's direct perception, there's analogy, inference, and testimony. Direct perception being the highest of those, because what direct perception really is personal observation of reality. If you have a personal experience of it, then you're not as likely to question it, because you have experienced it yourself through your 5 senses. Your 5 senses either on a more physical level or even on a subtle level. So if you want to know what an orange tastes like, eat an orange, right? If you want to know what cinnamon smells like, smell cinnamon. There's other ways that you can obtain knowledge according to Nyaya philosophy. So for example, one of the other ways is analogy, which is comparison. So for example, we might say that the structure of an atom is like our solar system. So we're comparing one thing to another. Or there is another way of knowing truth according to Nyaya philosophy that is inference. So we infer something based on past knowledge. So for example, a mechanic will hear a noise in a car. He'll recognize the sound of a bad muffler, infers that the muffler is bad. He's heard that kind of sound before. Or you see a swollen river and you infer that it recently rained, right? You make an inference. And then the other way is testimony, basically the word of a trusted source. So my teacher told me so. My mother told me so. My guru told me so, right? But none of those are directly experiencing it yourself, which is what the Rishis did in obtaining the knowledge of Ayurveda. And in fact, the teachings from the Vedas as a whole are said to be largely came about through direct perception. So how do you directly receive information of this kind of a nature, such as the knowledge that's contained within the Vedas being the oldest writings of Vedic knowledge, written 1500 BCE or older? We're talking quite ancient here. The roots of India's philosophical, spiritual, and medical systems. That how do you receive information through direct perception for those kinds of topics? Well, that is when the subtle senses come into play. And so literally what the rishis would do is meditate and merge with whatever is the subject of their studying, go deep into their own heart to have the answers revealed to them, which happens when you have learned to subdue your own ego. When your ego is taken out of the picture, which is obviously not so easy, as many of us can attest to, but ultimately practices such as yoga are very much aimed at that, at being able to subdue the ego in order to achieve self-realization. So if you achieve self-realization and then you meditate on whatever you're studying, the knowledge then is able to be divinely revealed to you. So the teachings of Ayurveda have a divine source. You might just say that then. The test of time has certainly stood well because yoga has been practiced continuously, really quite literally since the dawn of human history for thousands of years. Estimates put it somewhere between 3,500 years ago, 5,000 years. It could be up to 12,000 years old, and practiced continuously ever since.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So, is it true also that the rishis would spend time in nature And not only meditating, but also just watching how nature was and is, and the cycles of nature and the seasons of nature in order to get some answers.
So exactly. So then it depends on how we're defining watch. And so certainly watch even deeper than just watching, but quite literally merging with it. And so that's a perfect question, because that does help to describe really what we mean by that. So if you're in nature, and obviously that many thousands of years ago, they were surrounded by nature far more than we are today. Yes. But if they're in nature and they're spending time in deep contemplation and they want to know the essence of the tree that they're meditating under, they could go deep enough to merge with that tree, right? Sort of become one with the tree in many regards. Way back then, there were what are called forest academies. Way back.
Wow.
And forest academies, I find this really intriguing. People from a fairly young age, if they decided that they wanted to pursue understanding this ultimate reality and to know who they truly were, they would dedicate their lives, or a huge chunk of their lives, many, many years, to these forest academies, where they would go deep into the forest and work with Rishis, work with yogis, work with people who had attained this higher level of being and of this divine connection and of being able to subdue their own ego. And they would literally spend their days in deep meditation and contemplation, day after day, year after year, getting to a place to where they were able to then ultimately have a deep understanding of these highest truths. And the teachings of the Upanishads, those who are in the world of yoga will recognize perhaps the Upanishads. The Upanishads are a way of putting into some sort of an understandable form what these learned people arrived at. Because when you start talking about this level of wisdom and of understanding, it really defies just putting it in plain language. You have to use metaphors. You have to use poems. You have to use stories. And these are, parables and such. And these are the ways that the Upanishads are really all aimed at helping us. Every single Upanishad is aiming us at our own true divine nature and helping us to find it within ourselves, within our own hearts, know our own divine essence.
Can you explain to the listeners a little bit more about the Upanishads?
Well, the Upanishads, it's interesting because the author of them is not even known. There's quite a number of them, and each of them have sort of a different way of directing us towards being able to move beyond the filters that stand in the way of us knowing who we truly are, instead of being caught up in the mental, agitation, the thoughts that are always zooming within our mind, which is a part of what the Vedantic philosophy calls the Maya, or the illusion, to be able to move past that illusion to a place of greater clarity. And so the Upanishads direct us towards being able to move into this place of greater clarity, to teach us what the end goal is, and that is that we are all one, that we are what in yoga is Satchit Ananda, existence, knowledge, and bliss. Absolute. That is the truest truth of who we really are. And you'll find in the Upanishads, for example, that they typically will end with Om Shanti, or Om Shanti Shanti Shanti, which is, Shanti means peace in Sanskrit, directing us towards ultimately peace, peace being the highest truth, our eternal oneness, our eternal consciousness, our eternal place of peace and bliss is who we truly are.
Absolutely. And we are all one, and we are one with nature, and we are nature, which is something that we need to really understand in today's world, that we need to protect our Mother Earth and live in tune with her.
Yeah, and if I could just comment on that, if you don't mind. It's as the years have gone by and so many of us have become increasingly disconnected from Earth. We live inside instead of outside. We have paved roads instead of walking through the dirt. We've covered over so much of the Earth, and we've become disconnected with the planet and Mother Earth, Gaia. And yet, ultimately, she is our mother. We are made of the same materials. We're all affected by the same forces, the same rhythms, the same patterns as every other aspect of this natural world that we live in. And Ayurveda not only reminds us of that, but teaches us how to pay attention to that, how to know ourselves in terms of who we are, what we are made of, how to harness this wisdom within the natural world and apply it to our own health and healing, as well as to the health and healing of everybody else, so that we can all be in harmony instead of living disharmoniously, which leads to disease, leads to discontent, leads to war, leads to all the strife that's such a part of the world, leads to harming our mother planet, our Mother Earth planet here. And so by living harmoniously, we're stepping into the flow. And ultimately, I just feel so passionately about the more that people understand and embrace the teachings of Ayurveda along with yoga, that we are restoring harmony to body, mind, and soul, both individually as well as collectively as a planet. And it has the power to truly transform us.
It certainly does have the power, absolutely. And it can start with each individual receiving that direct perception within their own body. And then from there, the reason I asked that first question to him, I guess, is that there's usually some profound story around how each individual came to Ayurveda, and a lot of times I find it's through their own healing. So they had that direct perception and then go forward and say, I want to learn about this, I want to share this with others, and understanding the power of this knowledge.
Yes, absolutely.
And there's a reason why, like you were talking about those wonderful forest academies, which I had never heard of, so thank you so much for sharing that. But there's a reason why the Rishis bathed themselves and took time out in nature and had this academy deep in the forest, because that connection to nature is vital.
Right, absolutely. And it is ultimately how we're able to know how to live in this world and stay healthy, stay having peace of mind, enjoying our time here and not being just knocked around by it. Yeah. These teachings and these 6 systems of Indian philosophy really support us in being able to do that, each in their own way, to know how to overcome the suffering of the world, how to, in essence, to be able to be in the world but not of the world, to be the witness to what's going on within the world and not get so caught up in it that it leads to the dramas of life. I kind of like to use a metaphor of that, of, I think of my own wonderful daughter. When she was young, she was a bit of a handful, honestly, adorable, but quite a handful. And as the teenage years rolled around, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I getting myself into here? And she was a bit of a drama queen and riding the kind of dramatic roller coaster all the time. And I realized at some point that as her mother, my job was not to climb onto that roller coaster and ride that roller coaster with her, because then we're both just getting knocked around and right, crazy, spiraling through space. Instead, my job was to just stand at the bottom, like the gate where the roller coaster ride was, and just watch her, send her love, let her go off on her roller coaster ride. And when she was through, to just give her a hug and off we go on our merry way. So not engaging in it.
That is great advice for these times, specifically when things are a little crazy right now in the world, and it's not to get caught up in this drama, like you said. And I heard a great analogy the other day of be like an eagle, where you're looking at things from above, and you can see everything that's going on, but you don't need to get attached to anything, or you don't need to be down there amongst the drama. Now, if something serious happened and somebody was, something was attacking your nest or something like that, then you could go down, take care of things, but be the eagle soaring above it all, so you can see what's going on, but not to get caught up in the negativity or the drama.
Yeah, I like that metaphor. And what I like to do is to just send love constantly to the places in the world that need it. And sending prayers and love is very powerful. I just a little note here about something that I went through in my own life. A few months ago, I went through a really close call with death. Honestly, I got extraordinarily sick and was in the hospital in intensive care for an extended period of time. And it was such an incredible experience. So many people sent me love and prayers. And when I was so very ill, I had this experience of all of that prayer and all of that love coming towards me, and all of the people who were sending the prayers and the love, and the deities and the angels and the mantras and everything else. It's like every bit of it became a part of my awareness and a part of my healing. And out of that, I really learned the extraordinary power that sending love and sending prayers have. I didn't realize just how powerful that is. So I just like to share that, so that you feel like we can't do anything. It's not true. We can. We can always send love and prayers.
Wow, that's
whatever that might be.
Yeah, exactly. For each individual, it might be different, but just sending out that energy of healing, love. Yeah.
Exactly. Love, light, whatever that is for each of us, it's all going to work. It's all very powerful.
Well, Marisa, thank you so much for sharing that. This is a beautiful story, and I'm glad that you're back healthy and well again.
I'm pretty happy about it too.
Yeah, I can imagine. It sounds like it was a scary episode. So tell me about what you do at the college there. So you have different programs. I'd love to know a little bit more about what you offer.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm as you had stated, lead faculty here at the California College of Ayurveda, and we're located in Northern California. We have classes, though, available to students. You can actually attend anywhere in the world, and you can do that 3 different ways. You can either move to this area, which is a beautiful area in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains near Lake Tahoe, and live here for a while and go to school. Or you can stay at home wherever you are and tune into our classes live online. So you're attending the classes, but you're doing it from your computers in your own homes or wherever you are. Or you can be paired with a master teacher and go at your own pace and meet regularly with your master teacher and watch the recordings of the classrooms if you'd like.
That's great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it is. We have students literally from every corner of the planet who are attending college here. And so we teach Ayurveda everything from the first level program, where you learn the foundational principles in a very, very hands-on way. The first year of the program, you go into a wonderful level of depth, and you learn how to bring the principles of Ayurveda into your own life. And that's really a big emphasis of that year, is how to apply it to your own health and healing. And then we have a second year, that second academic level, where we go into a lot of depth within each of the systems of the body. So you come to learn both the Western and the Ayurvedic approach to the digestive system, the nervous system, the circulatory system, etc. And then we have now, actually literally just starting next week, an Ayurvedic doctor program, which is extremely exciting.
Wow, great.
ultimately people will be able to go to that level as well. And along with all of that, there's 3 different levels of internship. And so by the time you complete the programs here at the college, you're very well trained, completely ready to go out on your own, start your own practice, bring your healing wisdom to the world, including trained in how to offer classes of Ayurveda in your own communities. And so it's a really great school, truly.
Fabulous. Yes, I've heard great things about it. And are you seeing a surge in people interested now in Ayurveda? Because your school has been around since when? Since early 2000?
Yeah, exactly. This is our 22nd year now, and we are really among the oldest in the country, and it's amazing, literally, how much has changed in that amount of time. And since I started as a student here too, I would start talking about Ayurveda, and nobody had heard of it. Even yoga teachers didn't even know, but maybe, but not really, or maybe not at all. And now, I can speak in front of a crowd or whatever and ask how many people have heard of Ayurveda, and a bunch of hands go up. It used to be like 1 or 2 in a whole crowd of people. Now it might be half or 2/3. At least they've heard of it.
Good.
So there is, it's because, like I said before, Ayurveda and yoga are sister sciences. Ayurveda is following in the same pattern that yoga did. It's just that yoga arrived here first. Yoga, I don't know how much time we have left, but just kind of.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so just briefly, India, which is where these teachings emerged from, the motherland. India was a conquered nation for 1,000 years. 1,000 years being conquered. That's just like hard to even wrap one's brain around. And so conquering peoples came along, the Huns and the Turks and the Islamic people, and then eventually the British came along and tried to squelch their everything about their lives, because that's the culture, is part of what conquering people will do, including Ayurveda and yoga and such teachings. And so it wasn't until Gandhi, thank you, Gandhi, helped to achieve the liberation and free India in 1947, that Ayurveda and yoga were able to then spread their wings once again and flourish. So the wisdom never went away. In fact, it's continued unchecked down in the south of India, down like Kerala and Tamil Nadu, because the Huns and such didn't get down that far. But now the rest of the country could then open up to it again. And so now, since that's happened, we're seeing it really explode all around the world, as the teachers first who came to the West were yogis. And first they started talking about yoga. But now we're seeing the Ayurveda piece to that. And we certainly know what a tidal wave yoga has been as it has swept across the land.
Yes.
And the expectation is that Ayurveda will follow, and hopefully so, because the world needs it.
The world needs it, and I hope that it's respected in its classical form as well.
Yes.
Because sometimes in the West we can tend to simplify things a little bit too much, and that we don't just get caught up in the doshas, but it's this whole wealth of information.
I couldn't agree more, and that's a big thing for me, is to help to preserve the classical teachings. It's a big part of the college. The college is rooted in the classical writings of Ayurveda. There's 6 classical texts that Ayurveda comes from, and there's several other texts as well, and we really base everything on the classic teachings. And just a side note, if I could just say, I'm actually I have written a book, a children's book on Ayurveda, where I bring in all the basic principles and interweave into it a lot of the classic stories and such. And
fantastic.
Yes, I'm super excited. I'm actually looking
Congratulations.
but I'm ready, and I'm putting it out to the universe, because
I love it.
Yeah, my goal is for every child to be raised with this wisdom right from the get-go.
I agree, and I think it's so important for children to learn it at an early age, so they understand their mind-body type, and they just have so much confidence and trust in their own truth rather than being sideswiped by the crowd or by others. Yeah, I think it's so valuable for them to just have this understanding at a young age.
And to understand themselves and also others, so that hopefully it helps that judgment, so there's less judgment, like
Huge.
You're different from me, but now I understand why. It doesn't make me better or you better or whatever that judgment is that we put on things, but helps us to understand, be more understanding.
Yeah, isn't that so important? I mean, I remember when I just first learned that when I was studying Ayurveda, I'm like, oh my goodness. It seems so simple that not everybody is the same as me or thinks the same as me, but it just improved my relationships personally and professionally so much when I could understand other people's tendencies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if we could get children on that path early in life, you know, it would just make their lives so much easier. Well, that's wonderful. What's the name of your book, or do you have a name on it yet?
Oh, yeah. It's The Adventures of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, The Quest for the Sacred Nectar.
I love it. So you said that you're looking for a publisher right now. Is that correct?
I am.
Okay.
Yes.
We're putting it out there.
Putting it out there.
I love to see these children's books coming out, because I'm right there with you. I think we need to get people on this track a lot earlier in life. And if they taught it in school, wouldn't that be amazing?
That's what this book is. It's an adventure story, but ultimately it can be used as a fun way to learn. It's like a textbook that is disguised as a story.
Fab. That's absolutely amazing. Marisa, is there any piece of Ayurvedic or yogic wisdom or advice that you would like to give our listeners today?
Oh, goodness. Okay.
It's a hard one.
I would say that I very strongly encourage people to explore Ayurveda to the extent that you can come to know yourself, because with that knowledge and with that information, then you're able to make informed choices about your life. Ultimately, what Ayurveda teaches you to do is to make lifestyle choices that you can sustain throughout your life. Come to understand yourself so that you know how to live a life of harmony. And I guess a really important piece of that is, and this goes back to this concept of judgment that I said a moment ago, love you exactly as you are, without judgment. And ultimately that'll allow you to love everyone exactly as they are, without judgment, realizing that we are all divine beings here, and we are doing our best. We're in a bit of this veil of illusion that makes it hard to really know the highest truth. So let's be gentle on ourselves and on each other, and hold this higher vision of who we truly are, and to strive to be selfless in our every action, and to open our hearts to these teachings.
Beautiful. So, yeah, compassion is the word that comes to mind when I hear you say those lovely words, is compassion for yourself and for others. We're all just doing our best.
We're all just doing our best. Even the ones that we think are doing a good job at it, they're just equally, they're just a little bit more in the dark is all.
Yeah,
but
that's
still
it.
Too.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there any other information, Marisa, that you would like to share with the listeners? Anything, other offerings? We talked about what you're offering the college, but yourself, you said you give talks, and you mentioned your lovely book. But is there a place where people can find out more information, for example, about the college or about your talks, your workshops?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
My pleasure.
So first of all, the California College, the website is ayurvedacollege.com. There are classes beginning really soon. Weekday classes begin March 20th, and weekend classes begin March 17th. So if people are interested, they might want to check into that, although we have 2 starts a year. And the distance learning students can start at any month. So that's year round. And I'll be teaching a program coming up here in April and May. It's a program that's called Classical Ayurvedic Yoga Therapy Teacher Training Course. And this is for the yoga teachers out there. It's a program that's specifically for yoga teachers to learn how to bring the principles of Ayurveda into your class. Beautiful. So that you're able to customize the classes according to the three doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And along with that is an exploration of one's own Ayurvedic constitution and bringing in Ayurvedic lifestyle practices. It's a very deep and wonderful program. It's a 2-week intensive, and it takes place at the Shivananda Ashram Yoga Retreat in the Bahamas. So it's not such a place to have to go. Quite a wonderful, very special program. And I'll be teaching that along with Margaret Koblesova, who is an associate of mine, who's also an Ayurvedic yoga practitioner, a clinical Ayurvedic specialist, as well as a yoga teacher. And if you want to learn more, you can learn more on either the ayurvedacollege.com website or also on the shivanandabahamas.org website. And that program is from April 28th to May 11th. And I would love to see anybody and everybody there.
Wonderful. That sounds amazing. And I'll put all those links, show notes as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Well, Marisa, it was such a pleasure to chat with you today. And I really want to thank you for all the amazing work you're doing in the world and spreading this wonderful teachings, and you're reaching so many people. So it's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, and the same with you. I love what you're doing with this podcast, and I totally honor you for putting that out there in a way that can reach so many as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you. We're all doing our bit, right?
Yeah, that's all we can do.
Yeah, and it's wonderful because we love it too. So it's a beautiful thing. Well, thank you again, Marisa, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you. You too. All right. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. I hope you enjoyed that episode with Marisa. It was so interesting to talk about the Rishis and the philosophy of Ayurveda, and also all those links that we mentioned in the episode you will find in the show notes. Now, I'm also doing my last call right now for the upcoming spring cleanse, which starts April 14, 2018. So just a few days left. And if you're interested in joining us in unpacking those fat-soluble toxins that are holding you back from thriving, well, please just check out the link in the show notes to book your private consultation so I can tailor the cleanse to you, and we can have you going forward into spring feeling light and clear and energetic. Thanks so much for tuning in, and if you like the show, please be sure to rate and review it so others can find the show. And if you think a particular episode can help any of your friends or family, just share it with them, and that would be amazing. Okay, take good care of yourself, and